Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 86 for Thursday, August 8th, 2024. Ha! You thought I was going to say Friday.
This is the third take, just, so y'all... I'm kidding.
Not this time, Mario. That has been true in the past.
Justin did have to stop and think about it before he said Thursday.
I did get your name correct, Mario, despite the fact that I do have you listed as Christina on the rundown.
It's
so,
okay.
Speaking of mistakes I did make on the rundown. Hello, my name is Justin Young. Joining me, as always, are Alicia Utecht and Mario Sanders. How are you doing?
Doing pretty okay. It's sort of the
final...
You have
to speak. You can't just nod your heads. It's an audio podcast.
We were having that Zoom.
Not one of those newfangled video podcasts.
I was saying we were having that Zoom moment where you try to make eye contact and figure out who's going to speak first.
Talk. I'm doing pretty good. This is the final week before our orientation week starts, which should also be pretty chill. Really kind of getting all set up for the start of the new semester. The summer class I was taking and teaching, those are both done, so that's nice.
Cool. How about you, Alicia?
Yeah, it's going good. I'm a little can't believe that the semester starts in 2 weeks and that orientation is next week, but I feel like it's been a good summer. Getting to go home for a month was very much needed. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like one way or another the semester's going to come, but I feel like I actually can get through it, even though especially the first half of this semester is going to be insane. But it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say there was no pain behind that statement at all.
No, that was totally convincing. I bought that entirely.
It's going to be crazy with trying to work on my dissertation. I'm doing a solo show in October. I'm doing a 75% appointment, so I'm working 30 hours a week this year instead of 20. So it's gonna be a busy one, but it's gonna be good.
All right, cool. So it's gonna be pretty hectic in the next couple of weeks. Like Mario said, probably not next week too bad. Maybe for Christina, because she runs orientation week. But for us, not that bad. And so then it'll be first week of classes, and that's always kind of hectic for everyone. So we were talking before we went on air about the Olympics, so just sort of grounding us in place and time where we are. So we're in the second week of the Olympics and everything. So that's always kind of an exciting time of the year when the Olympics come around.
USA, USA, USA.
It's really the only time you can chant that and not just be a complete jackass.
Right? It's like the one time that we can all be unapologetically, unabashedly, go Team USA.
Hulk Hogan's Real American just playing on repeat.
I don't think Hulk Hogan's the one we need to invoke.
As the one time that I want to positively think about him. And it's for the music that someone else made.
Summer winding down and everything, about to head back into the semester. It's been keeping me fairly busy. And so I'm pretty excited to get back to things. Why don't we just jump right into the news, though, because...
Are we just skipping what we're playing?
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. I'm going back to the original format of this show, where we talked about what we're playing at the end instead of at the beginning. Alicia, what have you been playing?
So like I said, I was at home for about a month, and so with my family, I think we were playing Pokemon Go at least 4 times a week, taking the dogs, going out on either driving around town or going on walks with them and doing that. So that's been a lot of fun, Not that it's not fun all the time, but it's
Does all your family play? Like, does each of you have your own account?
Yep, we all do. And it's nice because, like, my sister and I are both Team Mystic. My mom and dad are both Team Instinct. So we can go around and be like, okay, I'm kicking you out of this gym and taking over so you can get your 50 coins for the day. Rather than, like, if we were all on the same team, it'd be like, okay, there's 4 of us. Each gym only holds 6 Pokemon, so who gets to go in?
Right.
But it's just really nice getting to have, you know, being able to play with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, everybody is enjoying their time. Everybody's freaking out when somebody catches a shiny. Because, you know, it's fun to do that by yourself, but it's more fun with other people who are also enjoying it. So,
yeah, to me, that was always the, like, sort of appeal of Pokemon Go, right? That it got you physically outside and that it got you interacting with people.
exactly.
I mean, I remember OJ talked about there were groups on campus that would meet up
Yeah.
and play together. And, you know, there's something particularly in, even though that's an internet obviously enabled game, but like in an internet age where most people, like even college students, are playing online together and not actually necessarily going to each other's apartment or dorm to play together.
Mm-hmm.
Something kind of unique about Pokemon Go with that.
Exactly. And like you said, that was always part of the beauty of it. And then, you know, I'm just usually busy when, like, the campus group is meeting up.
Sure.
So I very rarely make it to, you know, I'm still part of the Discord, and once in a while I'll make it to something, but just as a whole, I end up playing more by myself than with other people while I'm here. So it was really nice getting to do that. And like I said, just play with the whole family, and even like I go into work with my mom sometimes, since the place where she works, I also worked for 3 summers. And so I'll just go in and, you know, bring my computer, work on my stuff while she's at work.
Mm-hmm.
And even like we got one of the guys upstairs playing Pokemon Go, so being able to trade with him and everything. So that's been the big one, especially while I was home. I don't think I took my Switch out of my suitcase for the first 3 weeks that I was home.
I find when I travel, like I'll bring my Switch or my Steam Deck, and it ends up spending most of its time in my suitcase.
Yeah.
Like I don't play it nearly as much as I think I will.
Yeah. I think I took it out when Power Wash Simulator was like, here's our anniversary free update, you know, free DLC. And I was like, okay, I got to play that. But.
And so have you shown that to your mom?
I have.
And did she have thoughts?
Oh, she thinks it's hilarious. She loves it. She literally emailed the president and the CEO of the company to let them know that there was a game about Power Wash sitting.
That's awesome.
And they were just like, okay.
I would think that would be like, can we get our branding into that game?
Sure.
Right? That's what I think they should do. I'm like,
Some sort of
guys,
partner deal.
come on. Like, get on this. Let's get some AR North America merchandise in here.
To say, you know, what are those, you know, immersive gaming type of situation? Come down to the planet and we'll let you spray a real
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great like community day, and you could have switches set up so people can play the virtual one, but then they can go over and use a real one. And
I can understand my anxiety around, do I have the right nozzles? Yeah, that, oh no, my mom sent that email like the minute that I started playing that game and told her about it. She was like, this is amazing.
I mean, it really is. It's like such a niche area to do a game about, you know, and for years we never had games like that. And now, because of the indie market, we get these very niche games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of actually cool because, you know, it's like seeing yourself represented on television or in a movie. And now people see themselves represented in video games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like,
and especially, you know, I put together Power Wash Simulator and House Flipper a lot because you recommended House Flipper to me when I finished Power Wash Sim. But like, as far as I've been able to tell this entire time, House Flipper has no story. It's just doing the thing. But like the fact that Power Wash Simulator manages to have a plot.
A weird plot, but yeah.
A fantastic plot. That just I will never stop telling people that they need to play that game because I'm like, you don't understand. The plot sneaks up on you and then it happens and you're like, wait, what? There was a plot all along? You know, it's that meme of the two astronauts in space. There's a plot to this game? Always has been.
Yeah. So Pokemon Go, anything else much?
So since I got back, I've been playing more. I forget if last time that I was on, because we didn't record for like the last week or so that I was here. So I forget if I had beaten the Ace Attorney Dual Destinies game at that point.
I think the last episode you were on that I listened to, you were on the second game because I wasn't here for that week. So
Yeah.
you were on that game.
Yeah, so I beat that one, and I'm on the last case of Spirit of Justice, which is game 6. And my word, these games, I can't. The last case is always so incredible. Every game, even, you know, the first Apollo Justice game is probably my least favorite of the series that I've played. But even that one, the last case, freaking amazing. Spirit of Justice, the last case, I'm halfway through, I think, and I'm just screaming the entire time. I'm just like texting my sister nonstop, all caps, pictures of the Switch being like, no, this is not happening. Are you kidding me? And then, you know, it's a fabulous time to be an Ace Attorney fan because now in September, we're getting the Investigations package.
Right.
It's like that Investigations 2 has been out for 12 years? Has never had an official English release. And now the year that I get into it, we're getting it. It's a good time to be an Ace Attorney fan.
And so do you imagine the Great Ace Attorney games will be next? While
Probably.
you're waiting for those two?
Probably, because I imagine I'll finish Spirit of Justice before the school year gets started.
Mm-hmm.
And those come out September 7th, I think. Because I have until the 4th to pre-order and still get like the bonus tracks and everything. So, yeah, I'll probably be poking the Great Ace Attorney next because I got those when they were on sale. I just haven't played them yet. And those ones are cool because my sister is also playing those ones for the first time.
Nice.
Where she's played, you know, the 2 trilogies forever ago.
That'd be cool that y'all will get to experience those
Yeah.
somewhat alongside each other.
Yeah, she's like trying to get through the first game before I get to it because she's like, I want to beat it before you so I can know what's going on when you're rambling. I'm like, no, let's play it together.
Yeah, there's a Humble Bundle right now has a Capcom bundle of games, and I know it includes one of the Ace Attorney trilogies in there.
Nice.
And so, like, if you're listening to this and you want to get into those, that's a good way. There's a lot of other cool games in there, but that did catch my eye that was included.
Highly recommend. They're amazing. Oh my gosh. I can't get over how many years I spent thinking just like, haha, funny lawyer game that I see people like, you know, put like dumb court transcripts but in Ace Attorney videos.
Right.
And that's like you get into them and it's like, oh no, this is actually phenomenal.
Now, how many other games that Ryan like proclaimed love for are you going to have to go back and try?
I know. I'm looking. I'm like, I remember Ryan talking about Nier Automata a lot.
Yeah, that is that's a very different game, but it's also a very interesting game.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay. We'll see what happens. You know, I also need to have money first, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Is that everything?
I think so. I said Pokemon Go was the big one while I was home, and then now that I'm back, getting to get back on Ace Attorney has been the big one.
All right. Mario, how about you? What have you been playing?
So since the last time we recorded, I know I've talked a few times about these different sort of game events that happen. The like big community that I've met all of these friends through is doing their sort of annual event where sort of the community is split up into teams and play games, earning points and stuff like that. And so there have been a few races that I've participated in. But I think the game that probably sticks out the most, which was not a race, every year there's just like a hard game where it's just beat the game is what you have to do. And I think typically the expectation is one sitting. That's not always the case, but it was this year. So yesterday, pretty much all day, I sat and beat Super Ghouls and Ghosts. And that is a game. It's really not that bad until like the last level. Once you get to that last level on the second loop, because you beat the game, and then the princess is like, "Oh, Arthur, you moron, you needed to beat the game with this weapon," and so you have to play the game again.
Okay, I love that though.
I don't think she actually says that, but I wasn't
But
reading,
that's the
so I feel
vibe.
like that's probably what she says.
That's the vibe.
Sure. So you get the goddess bracelet. You can only get that in the second playthrough. And that the rematch against what was the final boss, you can't get to the final boss until you have the bracelet. But that rematch, I think I might just be the worst Super Ghouls and Ghosts player of all time. But I think I was on that level longer than I played the rest of the game combined.
Dang.
It was rough. And I needed to like just stand up and walk around multiple times. And when I say I was doing this all day, I quite literally mean like all day. I think it was like a 13 and a half hour marathon of just eventually beating this game. But like I said, I might be the worst of all time, the worst to ever do it, but it was done.
But you did it.
Yeah, I think the fact that you actually finished the game shows that you're not the worst to ever play Super Ghouls and Ghosts, because like for people who are listening who may not have any sort of clue, because that's a very old franchise at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a franchise. I guess there was that game they made a couple years back, but like it's not been in the limelight in the way that a lot of older franchises have been recently. Those games are known for their insane difficulty. Like they're crazy difficult games. They're one-hit death games in a lot of respects. I mean, you usually have your armor and you lose it, so it's 2 hits. But you don't have an energy bar, a life bar of anything. The enemies are relentless and like weird patterns.
Weird patterns, and I think some of them just like will infinitely spawn. Yeah. And they will spawn basically anywhere on the screen. So there were multiple times where they would just spawn right on top of you. And you're like, well, I guess I'm dead now.
Yeah, and like that's starting from the very first level.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the zombies coming out of the ground at you right from the very first level. And so, I don't think I've played Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I've never beaten it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's the first loop, I don't think is that bad. I will say one thing about the game. It's very hard to like hard game over in that. Like you get your lives and then you start with 6 continues. It is very easy to like earn continues in that game. So it is very hard to hard game over to like where you are restarting from the very beginning. But you're going to die quite a bit in that game. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I've been the original on the NES, which was insanely difficult. It's one of those things like now, if I play that game, I'm like, how did I ever do that? Like, there's no way I could do that now. I feel like my reflexes are just that bad at this point. And so I guess I never really played a whole lot of the Super Nintendo version, because there's also a Genesis version, and I mean they're all different games basically, but all based around the same premise. And yeah, I mean, those games are legendary for their difficulty. So like anytime somebody beats any of those games, I'm pretty impressed. So 13-hour marathon does not surprise me that it took that long, but that's still an impressive achievement.
Well, and I think, it's one of those things where you hit a point where you get a little like your brain stops working after playing for so long. And so it was just, that's why I was like, I just need to stand up and pace, contemplate life.
Yeah.
And the
Get a
decision that
sandwich.
I've made. Yeah.
What am I doing with my life here?
Are these fake internet points really worth this? And then, of course, you enter sunk cost. We're like, well, I've spent this much time,
Yep.
on this. I think I hit that final level like 7 hours in. So like that's how long I was on that level.
I've wasted 0.01% of my life with doing the math.
But yeah, it's one of those things that like I would recommend doing that first loop, because that first loop isn't too bad. But the second one really is just the same exact game, but then you have to beat that boss with that particular weapon. And the tough thing about that weapon is it does variable damage based off of how far you are away from the target. And you really can't get super close to it. So you are just like, yeah, it's a tough fight. But yeah, that first loop, when you can use whatever you want, I think it's worth playing. And again, because you can't hard game over because it's on Switch Online, you can make save states so you can come back to it. But yeah, that is a tough game.
Yeah, I would recommend everyone play one game in that franchise. Like, it doesn't have to be that one specifically, but like play one of those games in the Ghost and Goblins franchise, because it's just an insane franchise, and we just don't make games quite like that anymore. So it's kind of interesting to see, and it's pretty influential to other game developers at that time.
Sure. Yeah, I've never played any of the other ones. Because the first one is like Ghosts and Goblins. Is that the...
Yeah.
On the NES, and then they did the 3D like Maximo, I believe is also in that franchise on like the PlayStation 2, but that's the only one I've ever played, but I'm glad to have. Like I said, it's a game that has its place in history, so to have been able to play it, I'm glad to have been able to do that.
All right. Anything else?
There are, but nothing super. I guess the other one that I played for the first time is Portal, and that was a lot of fun, but I don't have a ton else to say about it.
Comments about the cake?
No.
All right.
How far did you get on Portal?
I beat it. That was one of
okay.
our race games. So it was the first time I'd ever played it, so it was just like more casually. I was just getting participation points.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a fun game.
Any remorse over the friendship cube?
No. What it had to be done.
That first Portal is a really good game, really tightly made.
Mm-hmm.
It gets in, gets out just at the time when you might start to get bored with it. Has an interesting story, like hook to it.
Has one of the best end credits songs of all time.
Good end credits song, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I feel like it does a really good job in terms of like scaling up the difficulty.
Right.
It never gets like too difficult, but those end puzzles, they're not like super easy. At least they weren't super easy for me. Like the brain had to be turned on for that one.
Right. No, I mean, it's just a incredibly well-made game from start to finish. Like, I like Portal 2 quite a bit, but I think Portal 2 has more moments where it stumbles a little bit. Whereas Portal 1 is like just about perfect straight to beginning to end.
I say Portal 2 is also like significantly longer,
Right,
isn't it?
yeah.
At least like twice or three times as long. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 times longer. It was more of a full $60 product, right? Whereas Portal 1 was, it was included in the orange box originally. So it was like, here, get this with Half-Life 1 and 2 and Counter-Strike and Team Fortress.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would say is probably because they are Valve games, those games are always on sale. on Steam, and so you can get them for so cheap. I think I got both of them for like $3.
Yeah.
So if those are ever on sale and you've never played them, those would get a recommend for sure.
And the original Portal at this point should run on just about any new PC.
Any new PC, I think a lot of old PCs could probably run it okay as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anything that's basically come out in the last 4 years or so should be able to run that game easily.
Yeah. But those are the big things that I would talk about.
All right, cool. I played a couple of things. They released a demo for Symphonia. So this is a 2D side scroller. I don't know there's probably some term for this now, but it is a movement-based side-scrolling platformer that's very focused on the movement of the character. So it's sort of in the way of a Celeste or the game that I actually kept thinking of while I was playing it were the modern Rayman games, like Rayman Legends. That's really what it most reminds me of. So it is very much about, okay, you're going to walk into an area and so the demo that I'm playing is very much tutorializing it for you. We're going to teach you this new movement that you can do. So, okay, you've been doing this thing, but now we're going to add an air dash to it. So now there's going to be obstacles that you have to bounce and then do an air dash and then bounce off of something else. And, like sort of start chaining these together to move through the level. I think, so it also is like very focused around music. Which is sort of weird because like they have this animated intro to it and very orchestrated music, and then the dialogue in the game is just text. It's not spoken, which is really kind of weird because everything else like is so focused on the sound of the game. You think you would, hire some local college theater majors to come in and voice this, if nothing else, if you can't afford like professional like actors and everything. So like even if they had done something like Peter and the Wolf style, right, where okay, well this character when they're talking we're going to play this instrument for their voice, and that would have been kind of interesting. So maybe the final game will have voices in it, so I don't want to like hold that against it. It was something that just kind of stuck out to me. Your character interacts with particular objects by playing a violin. Yeah.
Okay.
But like that's less interesting to me because you just hold a button. So like I thought there might be something sort of maybe Ocarina of Time where you would have to play a combination of buttons or something to interact and play the instrument. And then the other thing is like the controls are just convoluted enough that I was finding it frustrating. Like those sorts of movement-based games like Celeste, because I bring that up because I think that's one of the best at doing it. But I would also, again, go back to Rayman Legends that also did this. Those games at their best feel very organic. You don't have to think about what you're doing. Like you don't have time to think about what you're doing because the level's moving so fast. You shouldn't feel like you're having to, contort your hands on the controller in order to do specific movements. And that's how I felt with this game multiple times in just the short demo.
Yeah, well, I just think about it in the sense of like they're difficult, but they're very simple in the sense of like there's 3 buttons, I guess. But like, yeah, so just, I mean, I don't know what this game entails of, but yeah, if you're like having to focus on what's on the screen while also having to like focus on what you're doing with your hands, I think that's where, the one, obviously just a hand-eye coordination, but like those are where games I think really start to become inaccessible of like there has to be this literacy both with the game as well as with the controller, and it makes it really difficult to like just enter into playing certain games.
I'm thinking of like fighting games where it's like,
oh sure,
yeah,
if you don't know all the combos.
Well, it's sort of what we were talking about with, the Olympics earlier. Like people who are really good make it look really easy.
Sure.
But like when you actually put the controller in your hands, it's like, hold on, what do I have to do here in order to press all these buttons or do all these things in a particular combination or sequence. So,
yeah, and I would argue like I could take just about anyone who plays video games, like not even like a diehard player, but like somebody who just casually plays video games and could hand them a controller and they could play Rayman Legends, like especially at the beginning of the game. Maybe not the later levels; they might struggle. Same with Celeste, like the first world or two. Like I feel like most people can get through those pretty easy. Late levels, some of that stuff becomes quite challenging, but like this game, I feel like people would start getting frustrated pretty early on because I was getting kind of frustrated. I was like, okay, wait, I have to do this, but I can't be moving forward while I'm doing this. And then I have to do this. And then it just becomes one of those games where I'm thinking more about my movement than I am thinking about the game.
And this is a demo?
Yeah. So, maybe some of that gets worked out for the final game. Like I hate to badmouth demos too much because they are what they are. But like this isn't an alpha or a beta. This is a demo they released to promote the game. So generally that's a pretty good sign of what the final game will look like, especially play-wise. So not super impressed with it, but if you love those type of games, maybe you'll get something out of it. I wasn't. The other thing that I played is Thank Goodness You're Here. So I talked about this, I don't know, maybe the last episode we did. So
I feel like you talked about this one the last one I was on.
So I don't remember this from them.
Yeah, so maybe it was about a month ago. Anyways, so this was originally I played a demo of it. They've released the full game now. This is the British sort of looks like an animated show, but it's basically plays out like a side-scrolling adventure game. So think of something a little bit like Monkey Island, but you're playing as a side-scroller platformer to some degree. And so I haven't finished it, even though it's a fairly short game. I haven't had a huge amount of time to play a lot of it. But the thing I'll say, much like with the demo, this is an incredibly funny game. It's like genuinely funny. It genuinely has made me, if not laugh out loud, at least smile multiple times while I'm playing it. And I find that most games that try to be funny aren't actually funny. I sort of mentioned Monkey Island because I think that's one of the rare ones where I think Monkey Island games are actually genuinely funny. This one's genuinely funny. It's like just a really good game. And I'm kind of surprised because it feels like it sort of came out of nowhere.
It's very cute.
Yeah, it's got that very sort of like Ren and Stimpy sort of art vibe to it, but with a British sensibility. So it's worth playing so far. Probably by the next episode we do, I'll be done with it because I think the full game's only something like 2 or 3 hours long. It's fairly short. But just to give an update on that. All right, now we're actually going to get to the news. So let's start with what I think has been the biggest news of the last week, which is that GameStop, not GameSpot, but GameStop, since people get those confused all the time, has shuttered Game Informer magazine. So Game Informer magazine is the largest print publication still going on in the U.S. for video games. We've lost a lot of the sort of classic ones, your Electronics Game Monthly, your Game Pro, Next Generation, all those have basically fallen out of publication. So Game Informer was the one still holding on, still fighting the good fight, and GameStop went in the other day and abruptly shut down the entire operation.
They even deleted the website? I was hoping it was still going to run digital.
No, so they shut it down. So this is where I think the bigger story is. So a 30-year-old publication shutting down is maybe not the, like we've lost a lot of print magazines in recent years, right? So things like Entertainment Weekly have shut down. So the writing was sort of on the wall that this magazine may not make it, another 10 years. I think most people kind of realize that. But I think the flip side of that is a lot of people thought, okay, well, if they shut down the print publication, then they might sell it off, or there might be a chance for the publication to go independent and continue to run as a digital publication and everything.
That's what I thought. I thought for sure it was going to, because they made a point of saying that they were shutting down the print.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, like the physical magazine will be gone, but it'll still be the website. And
I even just think about what about like the archive?
yeah.
Well, so like one of the things that's been an issue, right, is that we've seen a lot of these websites constricting in recent years. So, major video game websites completely shutting down in recent years. So the idea
Internet
that
Archive can only take you so far.
the idea that like this publication could have stepped in and been an immediate, it already was, but like if it went all digital, it would have been immediate peer to IGN or your GameSpot.
Sure.
Yeah.
As like the top of those heaps. But after announcing they were shutting down the publication, they apparently locked the writers out of their accounts, and then they went in and shut down the website. Apparently did not even give them an opportunity to put out a statement. If you read the statement that was put out, it is very clearly written it reads like it was written by AI. So that was the initial statement that got put out. Hey, this is being shut down. Somebody on the Game Informer staff still had access to the Twitter account. We're not calling it X, it's Twitter. And went on there and posted a statement from the staff, and then they were immediately locked out of that account.
Dang.
So GameStop has played pretty ruthless with this, which is, I think, the bigger story here, the bigger sort of blowback and everything. So you mentioned the archives. Yeah, that it's not just the archives on the website. It's not just the articles, but it's also like the YouTube channel, the videos and everything. Like the years and years of content that have been built up that overnight just disappeared. And so a lot of people went and, were looking at the Internet Archive, looking at YouTube, and immediately trying to download and back up a lot of that before that could potentially be deleted and lost forever.
I wonder why they're being so aggressive on it.
I mean, one of the things is running a website costs money. And if you're not selling any more advertising to the website, then it's just a straight loss to have that website up and running, especially a website of that size, right? That is still going to be drawing some amount of visits, even if you're not publishing or promoting it. And I suppose they just, from a pure accounting perspective, it's, hey, if we shut this down, we're not going to be spending I don't know what their sort of hosting is, but it would be in the thousands a month at least. That's not to excuse it, by the way.
Oh, no.
That totally sucks, not just for the people, but for, the hobby in general. There's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
There's a video on their archives of Dan Reichert interviewing Peter Molyneux of Black and White and Populous fame, and he's having him review fart apps off of the iPhone, which is amazing to take Peter Molyneux and subject him to this. So yeah, I think the big story is from the archiving perspective, right? We keep losing so much of this digital content. We just shut down the Xbox 360 store. There were something like 200 games as part of that aren't available anywhere else. So what happens to those games now? Well, they're lost if people don't turn to piracy. That's the only way those games can be played. They're not available anywhere else. So you can emulate them. And so the same thing with this, there's a lot of articles. There's, not just the reviews and the previews, but editorials and that sort of thing, that chronicle the history of video games over the last 30 years, a significant portion of the history of gaming history. potentially being lost if not for the Internet Archive backing all that stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I'll give a lot of credit that there are quite a few people in the hobby, in the field, who in recent years have really turned to making sure that all this stuff that's felt like it was inevitable, it would stay up there forever, right? Like that was always the promise of the internet. That was always the warning to kids. Like, if you post something on the internet, it's there forever.
And anyone can find it.
And we know now that's not always true. And so there are people going out there and trying to preemptively back up a lot of this stuff because they feel like at any time one of these big corporations could say, nah, we're done with that. And of course we saw that with the Wii and the Wii U, that, there were efforts to go out and purchase every game available digitally so then they could back those up.
Mm-hmm.
And that someday those would be available for people because some of those games never got ported anywhere else. That's the only place they're available. And, this is a different side of the coin, but like they're both important when you're looking at the greater history of video games. Mm-hmm. So that's all one side of the story. The other side is, right, obviously a lot of people lost their jobs. And a lot of people who've been doing this for years and are very skilled and very good at games coverage. And the less games coverage that's out there, I think, is worse for the hobby, because you want those different opinions. You want those different perspectives. You want different people who are out there holding these publishers to account, the promises they make and then don't fulfill. So,
well, and especially losing something like Game Informer, I could theoretically go out and start my own website and, complain to game publishers and all that. Nobody's going to care. I have no weight behind my name.
Or a podcast even.
Yeah, but it's like some like Game Informer. It's like I feel like they must have not even tried to sell it, because I feel like somebody would have bought it just for the weight that Game Informer carries.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a legitimacy, right? When you've been around for 30 years.
That's the word I'm looking for. Legitimacy.
When you've been around for 30 years and in print.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a certain legitimacy that brings to a certain type of person.
Yeah.
And it's an old person. It's like me. Like that still holds a value in print over digital to some extent.
Well, and even, I don't particularly care if something's in print versus digital, but I can look and say, holy cow, this has been around for 30 years. You should be doing something right to last that long and not be a joke.
Right.
Well,
and I think they were doing a lot of right things. I mean,
exactly.
Game Informer had earned respect from a lot of people in the industry.
I respect Game Informer more than I respect IGN.
Well.
So I'm like, not that's neither here nor there, but it's like I can't imagine that they tried to sell the name and everyone in the industry was like, nah.
Yeah, I don't think there was a big effort to sell it.
Yeah, like they had to have just been like, no, it's time, we're gonna shut it down.
Yeah,
which is just.
But I also don't know if there's a lot of desire for somebody else to buy it. Like at least as a print publication, right? Like,
yeah. Oh no, I figured as soon as they said the print was dead, I was like, okay, the print's dead. But I said the website being dead is just what gets me.
Yeah. Let's jump down because there's actually some stories. We're talking about holding the industry to account, so I do actually want to talk about these stories along with this. And I hate to always start the podcast with negative news and layoffs and everything, but I feel like these stories are linked. So Bungie also just announced that they're laying off 220 staff. So the story here is Bungie was sold to PlayStation a few years back. They paid a very large sum into the billions of dollars to buy Bungie, which at the time raised quite a few eyebrows. Like, Bungie's worth this much. I forgot what it was, something like 7 billion, 6 or 7 billion.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about that.
I think we did at the time.
When
so
it happened.
It hasn't been that long, right? We've only been doing this podcast a few years. And the sort of like rationale at the time was, well, PlayStation's making this shift into live service games. Bungie is one of the few companies that's been successful in that with the Destiny series of games. And so they're bringing Bungie on board to help sort of oversee that initiative. And then that initiative has not been successful for PlayStation. And the story is that Bungie did not meet goals that they had promised. That when they were being sold, there were metrics that were set for you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Bungie oversold itself. I should say the head of Bungie oversold what they could accomplish. They did not meet those metrics. And so this was sort of inevitable. Like, people on the inside said, hey, we've seen this coming for a long time.
That's good. At least they had time to brace themselves and hopefully find new jobs.
Yeah, I mean, at least to know that, something like this might be headed eventually.
Silver lining for sure. Still terrible, but silver lining.
They laid off 220 staff, and the like longer term outcome of this is Bungie will be no longer operating independently under Sony, that they will be reporting directly to the head of PlayStation Studios and be treated as just another developer under the Sony brand. So what that means long term is it means reduced development when it comes to Destiny 2. So they're going to scale back some of the development there. It also apparently means that they're going to be really sort of doubling, tripling down on Marathon, which is their next game they have in development, and that they really need that game to hit big, or, without saying it, they implied, hey, or there may be additional layoffs if that game does not hit big. So, like, pretty dark days. Luke Smith, I think that's the right name, who was one of the head in charge of Destiny as part of all this, left the company. Luke Smith, as far as my understanding, has a long history dating back to the Halo days with Bungie. So him being out of the company is maybe not the most positive sign. That's a lot of knowledge and the history of that company gone. So that's not the only negative news when it comes to layoffs, because if you have a modern gaming PC, you might have been following this story that there have been problems with Intel's i7 and i9 chips essentially overheating. And so they've been scrambling to try to fix that. But the bigger issue is Intel's in a lot of trouble. They laid off 15,000 people, which is only 15% of their company, but it's still 15,000 people.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, that's like how many students are at this university, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that not, if not more?
I think it's probably a little more.
Yeah.
I think we're probably around 12,000. So, yeah, I mean, it's
like laying off the entire undergraduate student population of SIU.
Was an entire town.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you went in and everybody in a town lost their job. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors going into this. There's, Intel has had trouble keeping up. They've lost business in recent years. Obviously, Apple, one of the most famous examples. But even Microsoft now is moving towards an ARM version of Windows. So it'll run off of ARM chips and not Intel x86 chips anymore. Obviously, they sort of missed the boat entirely when it came to mobile products. So, there aren't Intel chips in either iPhones or Android phones. So that's Qualcomm and, of course, Apple's own internal development. So, yeah, I mean, you have like the big growth areas Intel's really missed out on. And, now like this stumbling with their chips for these high-end gaming PCs, that's one of the areas where people were still buying Intel chips. Where you'd go out and buy the high-end, top-of-the-line Intel chip because it still had some advantages. And now that's going to leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths about Intel as a brand. So, yeah, it doesn't look good for Intel. But obviously, like we're sort of talking about this in the bigger scheme of news and everything. Obviously, the big story here is 15,000 people lost their job. Like we said, is an entire university, is an entire small town. Those are astronomical numbers that are hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
220 people you can kind of wrap your head around a little easier. But when it gets up to 15,000, you're like, that's the entire basketball arena.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like 4 of the towns around here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is Murfreesboro and a few other towns, all losing their jobs at once. So yeah, when I talk about accountability, right? Like we sort of need journalists, like Game Informer who can sort of hold these companies' feet to the fire. And like, why are 220 people losing their jobs at Bungie and not the head of Bungie, who's the one who made the promises? And there was actually some backlash. People were posting on social media, hey, this guy spent like $2.5 million on exotic cars and we're all losing our jobs.
Jeez.
And the same thing at Intel, like you would assume the CEO would be out of a job. Like that seems like an abject failure if you're having to lay off 15% of your workforce.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll note is that when Nintendo was struggling in the Wii U years, that Iwata took a pay cut.
I think he chopped his salary in half.
Yeah, he took like a 50% pay cut so that nobody else would have to lose their job.
Yep.
And that's not to say Nintendo never lays off people. They did recently with some Q&A people, but
that was special.
Yeah, like that should be step number 1, you'd think. Like that's a, person in charge who's like, I will be the first one to like go without. Even cutting his salary in half is still probably more than most of those people make, but so that other people don't have to experience that. Like if other, sort of going through all of those measures before we have to, significantly affect somebody's life like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that we see with these layoffs is you lose that institutional knowledge. And it's one of the things that I think companies often overlook is you lose 220 people out of Bungie. You're not just losing like a warm seat, right? Somebody to fill a seat. You're losing all the knowledge those people have about like how your game engine works, about how where these files are located, why this choice was made at this time in the development of the game. And when you look at Nintendo has weathered all this remarkably well. They're one of the few companies that seems to be doing well financially right now. And I think part of that is that Nintendo kept that institutional knowledge, right? Like Nintendo keeps employees long term. Like a lot of people at Nintendo don't just work there 3 or 4 years. They work there 30, 40 years. And, the same thing with something like Game Informer. When you shut down Game Informer, it's not just that you're losing, that person. You're losing all that knowledge of how the industry works. You can't just hire 20 new people off the street to come in and replace them, or to spin up a new, publication. So, yeah. it's a bad state of affairs in the game industry. Intel's not directly game industry related, but obviously it does power like a lot of these like high-end gaming PCs that people buy. My gaming PC is not high-powered, but it does have an Intel chip in it. It has Intel inside. They don't put that on stuff anymore. But speaking of another sort of bad case of a shutdown situation, Humble Games publishing shutdown. So Humble Games is going to continue doing their bundles of games and selling those. They're owned by IGN now. But one of the things that they had done had moved into publishing, like little small indie games. And one of those was a game called Coral Island by Stairway Games. And they put out a statement on social media that said, hey, look, we have updates for this game, and we can no longer make those updates because Humble Games shut down, and there's just we don't have access to the back end to upload these new updates anymore. And I feel like we've seen this happen a lot lately with publishers shutting down, and then somebody's like, hey, we can't update our games anymore. We don't have control over this game anymore. There were some cases of that happening on Steam when some publishers shut down. So, this sort of kind of makes an argument for why a lot of these indie games may not want to fool with these publishers because they're losing too much control in the process. I would hope that this gets sorted out, and maybe that's being worked on, but in the short term, right, like this is kind of a frustrating thing, not just for the developers, but also for people who are playing Coral Island.
So this was a game when it was on, what is that website called? Kickstarter. I had backed this game. I haven't played it, but I do have this game.
Okay.
And I have a friend who plays it, and he really loves it. It's sort of Stardew-esque, but he likes it even more. And I don't know if I follow this publisher, but I saw that in addition to this, they also put out an announcement saying that because of this whole thing with Humble, part of the Kickstarters you could choose like the key that you got, like what you could get it on. And they've basically said because of this, we also can't, like to people who backed specifically for the Switch, we probably can't fulfill that anymore. So and they said effective immediately, if you had a Switch key or that's what you had backed for, because it hadn't even been ported to Switch yet, we can reissue a Steam key basically immediately, but that's kind of the best and all that we can do if you had done it for a Switch, because I think they had said, I don't know if it's like we definitely aren't doing this or if it's that's the goal, but there is no timeline for when that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's happened several times with Kickstarter projects where they promised multiple versions across different systems and then they had to back out of that. I feel like that happened with the Wii U, that there were some games that were promised for the Wii U and then the Wii U died a very quick death and they were like, oh, well, we'll give you a Steam key, we'll give you an Xbox key or something to make up for that. So that's a game that's not going to import it to the most popular game system right now because of this.
Right. And you have to imagine that's probably incredibly frustrating for them. It's like, with how popular obviously Stardew is, with how popular Animal Crossing is, this is a game that fits that same style of life/farm simulator. That's a game that I feel like would do massive numbers on the Switch, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of its target demographic.
Right? That is peak Switch gaming in many ways. And so I they acknowledge in this letter that they put out how frustrated they are by it as well. I'm glad to hear that they are trying to do right by the people that, backed it for the Switch, but also acknowledging this isn't ideal. This isn't what we want. We know that you're frustrated. We are frustrated as well. But they're trying to do something for those people.
Yeah.
All the same. I'm sure legally they probably have to, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's been a problem with Kickstarter, right? Like Kickstarter, you're not actually buying something; those are rewards that you're getting. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
there's been lots of companies to run into issues that they can't actually fulfill those rewards. Man, and like, just imagine all those people who backed Star Citizen, been waiting years.
We've had one of them on this podcast.
But at least he's getting some enjoyment.
He is.
He's gotten something
He
out of it.
plays that game a lot.
Yeah. So, in other weird publishing news, let's just continue down this train of thought. We talked about, I think on the last episode, that there is no Mario and Sonic at the Olympics this year. So that was one of those things when they were announcing the Nintendo Direct. One of my guesses was, hey, maybe we'll get a Mario and Sonic at the Olympics game announced at this, because surely they're doing a Mario and Sonic game at the Olympics for the Olympics year. And then we found out, no, they were not doing it. Now we know better why that game is not coming out. So apparently the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, just said, no, we don't want Mario and Sonic anymore. So they did not give them a license to develop a game for this Olympics. And instead has said they want to focus their attention on NFTs and esports instead. And I should note as part of this, because I see Alicia already fuming. Next year, there is going to be an esports Olympics in, I believe, Saudi Arabia.
That sounds right.
Really?
I was talking about this with a friend not that long ago.
Yeah, which is apparently like they were already doing this, and they like licensed the Olympics name through the IOC.
Interesting.
Well, can I
No, go ahead,
get
jump in.
a little angry as well?
Yeah.
You want to know what the dumbest shit about this is it's not even like the video games you know. It is like simulation style sports games of like, here's this sailing game and here's this, like
You're
what are
talking
they
about
called?
the esports
The
Olympics.
esports. Like
Yeah.
it's not Rocket League. It's not Street Fighter. They have like a segment of those that are like purely for fun, I guess what you would call
Yeah,
it.
the fun games.
But these are not your what you would think of seeing at like an Evo or one of these other sort of big game tournament type
Sure.
of things.
Well, like,
You're not gonna, and like to some extent I can
It's not what
understand.
our esports team here at
Yeah.
SIU is playing.
And to
Right.
some extent, I understand that why they weren't including like a Fortnite or something like that. I want to say the IOC basically said like, we don't want games where you're shooting other people in the Olympics. And I'm like, you know what? I can respect that.
you can get Street Fighter in there though.
Well, yeah, but
Like-
so I think it was like Rocket League, Street Fighter. Well, at least for like a medal. And I
Yeah.
think Fortnite is included in whatever this like secondary, like you're not doing this for a medal. This is more of a games showcase
Yeah.
than it is the competition. But all of the other games are very like those high level like simulation
Yeah.
of
Wii Sports on steroids.
events that already exist in the Olympics.
Right.
Yeah, it's Wii Sports on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't believe. I'm like, how have you not seen NFTs bombing again and again and again? Like, why are you wanting NFTs?
They're due.
IOC.
They
Like,
do.
They've got to work one of these times.
well, it's like, man,
It's money.
it's money, and like, we talked about this in our group chat some of like, okay, yeah, on the one hand, how many Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games do we need?
Well, but
at
this
some
time
point
you can have the Eiffel Tower in the background.
Yeah. Whoa.
You can have Donkey Kong climb it.
That would be pretty
That
cool.
would be sick.
But it's like, so yeah, it's like on the one hand, how many of those do you need? On the other hand, it's just like, I'm just like, oh, but it's the end of an era.
Yeah, I think the other thing I had seen, and I mean, it was never listed as a reason, those games really started to sell pretty poorly. The
Yeah.
first one was really successful. I looked it up because I was, again, talking about this with a friend. First one sold like between, that must have
Didn't you
been
say,
the
like, 12
Wii and the
million?
DS, I think was 13 million. And the most recent one, which was Tokyo, I guess, sold less than 1 million. And
Yeah.
so
Which again, I think comes to like, because I haven't bought any since the first summer and the first winter one, because I was like, okay, like what more are they gonna do? What more are they gonna add? Like, how many Mario and Sonic the Olympic Games do I need? But
those also just aren't games that we get very often of just like an Olympics game. I mean, feel like we used to get those games, I just because I play, like the Nagano Olympics game on the N64. Mm-hmm. I know there's a London Olympics game that's just sort of like general Olympics events, but I don't know when like the real last one that was like not Mario and Sonic-ified, that was just like an Olympics game.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go back to like the 80s, I feel like those sorts of games were much more popular. So you have track and field, Konami's track and field series, and then you had, like we talked about in chat, like NX's games series, so like summer, winter, world games, California games. Mm-hmm. And so you used to have people publishing these sort of like what were always collections of mini games, essentially, and putting those out there, and like the appeal of those style of collections has, I guess, waned, and that's really what these Mario and Sonic games were, right? Like anytime you're doing the Olympics, it's got to be a collection of different mini games. So like maybe there was a chance we're getting a new Mario Party this year. So maybe the solution was to approach an Olympic game more similar to the way you make a Mario Party game, and like really try to do maybe not replicants of the actual sports, but things inspired that would be just fun to play, and allow you to like collect medals, and then I don't know, you're
or
traveling
like
around.
Play as a team or against each other. Like you get, you don't need to have a board like Mario Party does, but
I don't know, you can travel around Paris and see the different landmarks and everything. Like, I mean, there maybe just needs to be a rethinking of, in this modern age, how you do this type of game.
Yeah. Have Donkey Kong climb the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, climbing is an event. You could have Donkey Kong climb. You could have Donkey Kong climb. You could have Mario climb, real like old school Donkey Kong style.
I mean, there's girders there already,
right?
So like, it makes sense.
If you like,
no, that would be sick.
Kind of made like a silly Olympics game with Mario and Sonic. Yeah, I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think
interesting at least.
The other thing that's kind of sad about this is when that first Mario and Sonic Olympics game was announced, that was sort of like a, that was breaking of that sacred barrier between these two companies. Like,
that was like when Sonic made it into Smash Bros.
Right, but I think it was before that happened that we got that first Olympics game, and so
because that first one was probably like 2008.
Yeah.
But
no, I just mean like it was like it was a similar experience of like, oh my gosh, this is like a real crossover that's happening right now.
But we'd had those like Sega games coming onto the GameCube, and then to actually have Sonic show up in a game and headline it alongside Mario was, for people who had grown up in the 80s and 90s, that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like that
was incredible.
That was like seeing, that was like seeing Wolverine and Deadpool team up. It was like to put it into terms for the younger people, it was a major deal to have something like that happen on screen. And so, like, I mean, there's a certain importance to that series that goes beyond the games themselves. So let's see. Avowed, which was supposed to be one of the big Xbox games this year, this fall, has been officially delayed to February 18th, 2025. They have used the excuse that it is too crowded this fall for all the games that they're releasing, and they want it to better space out their lineup to allow people more time. And
okay, Xbox.
Somebody pointed out that there's a Dragon's Age game coming out this fall. And do you want two fantasy games sort of coming out and competing against each other? Maybe this was an attempt to give themselves some breathing room so they weren't overwhelmed by Dragon's Age, which is, the franchise that already has a built up name and everything to it. Yeah, it could also just be PR spin. Let's be honest.
I mean, I feel like we've talked about a game getting delayed hopefully means that they're going to get to continue to work on it and like iron out all the wrinkles and stuff like that. Like I feel like I'm at the point where like, I don't really care. I don't need a reason. Just make the game good.
Yeah.
Just use that time productively.
I think especially for a game like Avowed that certainly has fans who are looking forward to it, but isn't one of those games that you heard anybody say, this is my most anticipated game of the year.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
so like people are really, a game like Avowed has to come out and surprise people to some extent. It has to prove itself. So I feel like it needs to be better than, say, Dragon's Age, right? Where a certain number of people are going to buy that game blindly regardless.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the greatest.
And it's got a name behind it already, I think, as you're kind of getting it.
Let's see. THQ Nordic has teased a new Darksiders project. They put out a teaser trailer that that basically indicates it's a Darksiders project without saying directly it's a Darksiders project.
Is Darksiders the one where you play as like the Four Horsemen?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the one that the very first game in it is basically a what if somebody who is really into heavy metal made a Zelda game? And it's actually pretty good, the first Darksiders game. And then they made a second one and they were like, all right, this one's going to be more loot focused. So it's more like a Diablo style game. It's still sort of the third person behind the back, but played much more in that kind of style, like a looter shooter or something. That first Darksiders game is actually really good.
I remember playing it a little bit at my cousin's. Will this be the fourth one? Are there 3 of them already?
I believe so. I believe there is a third one that came out, so this will be the fourth one. No word on what this game actually is. Is it going to be sort of a spin-off, a smaller scale game? Is it going to be a full-scale sequel? But, assuming THQ Nordic doesn't go fully under before it gets finished, we might get a new Darksiders game. Roblox is selling tickets to Beetlejuice. So you can go into Roblox and within the game, you go into the Escape the Afterlife experience, which is what different companies, you can build your own game within Roblox. So apparently, I guess it's Warner Brothers is doing Beetlejuice, has built out this unique experience that's, I guess, within the Beetlejuice world, Escape the Afterlife. And there is a ticket counter that you can go up to and buy tickets, exchange money to buy real digital tickets to go see this film. Sort of the way that you can go on Fandango's website and buy tickets.
I was going to say, genuine question. Do you have to like put in your zip code to figure out what theater's closest to you? Like, how does this work?
I'm honestly not sure. I'm not sure if you're buying a voucher that you'll then cash in like on Fandango or some other place, or if you're actually
Have a partnership with like an AMC or something like that.
right. Yeah. And that detail may be in the story. I just don't have it.
I'm like, even if I that's the part that baffles me. I'm like, how are they getting a ticket for your theater? Am I getting a ticket for my theater back in Rogers? Am I getting it for the Carbondale movie theater? Like,
Look, they just need the kids to be excited about Beetlejuice.
Sorry.
These kids have no idea who Beetlejuice is.
they really don't.
Roblox makes me feel like such an old person.
Yeah.
Which it shouldn't, because I feel like Roblox is also old, but every time I see it, I'm just like, I don't know what the heck is happening. And I don't think I'm supposed to. I think you're just supposed to like walk around and explore the world. I know the one that was really popular that a lot of people were playing was whatever that fashion game in Roblox was.
My cousin has 2 kids who are 13 and 9, and they're obsessed. And I'm like, I am happy for you. I don't understand.
Well, and I have to imagine this is what like my parents felt when I would explain like, oh, Pikachu is an electric type Pokemon, blah blah
right?
blah. Like, that's great, honey.
I mean, yes and no. Like, there's a certain abstraction, I feel like, to Roblox from popular culture that something like Pokemon did not have. Like, Pokemon
Sure
penetrated popular culture at some point, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, because I feel this way about Fortnite to some extent, but Fortnite has penetrated culture. You can go to Kohl's and buy a T-shirt with Fortnite on it.
Yeah.
I think I feel about Roblox the same way that I feel about Minecraft personally, where I'm like, I see so many people love it. And like, I remember being in middle school and everybody being obsessed, and I just never got into it.
Yeah, but
I was always confused.
I would say there's an even bigger abstraction there, because like Minecraft, again, is sort of everywhere. It's like part of popular culture.
Yeah.
Roblox seems so segregated off, and maybe because it's the under 10 crowd who's mostly playing it. But like I have no idea. You tell me there's a fashion game in there? Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
It's like a runway model game. You get a theme, and there's like all these clothes, and you get to pick and like dress your character up.
Can you play as Helmut Kruger
I don't know who that is.
from the Hitman games? Helmut Kruger in like the latest Hitman game, he's like this fashion designer, and like at one point you can like knock him out and you can take his place, and then you have to walk the runway.
I doubt it, but yeah, I mean, like I said, that is like the only thing of Roblox I've ever seen, and that's just because there were a lot of people playing it. But I mean, and that's where I think like I don't, and sort of talking about like crossing that threshold into popular culture. I think that might just be an age thing. Like, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, will Roblox hit that where it is, or, the parents are going to be like, my kids want Roblox things like they wanted Minecraft things, like they wanted Pokemon things. I mean, my mom still thinks it's incredible that I'm able to study video games, like that they're like something to be studied, that they're not just this niche hobby thing.
I'm not sure she thinks it's incredible as much as she thinks it's troublesome, worrisome.
But and so like I think that, and the same way that I think that that's just like a generation thing where she's just like they feel so abstracted. Whereas if you talk to a child, I would assume, but I don't know who all plays Roblox. Roblox is like, I imagine, a dominant topic of conversation on the jungle gym, as Pokemon was when I was a kid.
Yeah, I guess Roblox to me feels much more in line with something like MapleStory or those like web-based games.
Sure.
In that, like, I just like these other things that you're bringing up, like Fortnite or Minecraft. Like, I hear people talk about these, and I know people who play these.
So you're thinking it's like Neopets.
Yeah, like something.
It's in that second tier of.
Well, no, I mean, Roblox is probably the biggest game in the world right now.
Sure. Well, there's a dating sim in there.
Yeah, that's true. So, like, it's probably the biggest game in the world right now. It's just so, like, separated from popular gaming culture.
Sure.
That, like, it is almost its own thing entirely, right? Where, like,
I get what you're saying.
If you're not playing it, it is completely off your radar.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about like Neopets and MapleStory. Like I know that was popular with young kids at the time, but like I didn't even know those things existed, really. Like I maybe heard of them casually in passing, but like I'm always like surprised at the number of people who are playing those, because like nobody I knew, and I never read anything about them at the time. And that's how Roblox feels to me. And that's not making fun of it. That's not to say it's bad.
Oh, no.
No, not at all.
It's just weird, right? Like to like think about it in that way.
You're just a freak. I know that's not what you're saying.
It just was beautiful timing.
Play a popular game. play a game I'm familiar with. Okay, kids.
You damn kids! Like, why can't you play a Donkey Kong?
Get out your Webkins and your Neopets and play the niche ones that we remember.
But I mean, like we've talked about several times on here, that the biggest games in the world we are personally not playing.
Sure.
And that's kind of amazing to think about, that that's where the game industry is today. So something like with this Roblox, right? Like this is goofy, but like it also completely makes sense to me that they're like, how do we reach young kids? How do we educate them on a property like Beetlejuice, which is at this point, over 35 years old. Even the cartoon series is over 30 years old at this point.
There was a cartoon?
Yeah. The cartoon's pretty good at the time.
I've only watched the movie even once, so.
But like, how do we, you talk about like, okay, boomer. Like, I feel like me going, oh man, a new Beetlejuice movie, that's great. I feel like all my students are going to be like, okay, boomer. What is your bug juice that you're real excited about? Not bug juice, Beetlejuice.
Bug juice you bought at the gas station on a road trip.
And so like, how do you reach that audience? And
Sure.
this is, it sort of reminds me of World of Warcraft, where you could like type /pizza, and maybe that was EverQuest and not World of Warcraft, but you could type /pizza and order like from Domino's or Pizza Hut or one of them in the game, and it would just bring up a window and let you order your pizza. So like you just never had to leave that world. And you could have a pizza delivered to you. So
I feel like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game needs that.
well, it came with a pizza, a coupon for a pizza. On the NES, it did at least. Yeah, so I mean, like it's kind of goofy and funny, but like maybe it'll work for them. Let's see. Santa Monica Studio, the makers of God of War, might be working on an entirely new IP. So one of their designers who had left the company is going back, and in a statement, I believe that he posted to his LinkedIn, because that's where business is done. Posted on his LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'm returning to Santa Monica to work on a new IP." And then that statement got edited and said, "I'm to work on one of their properties."
Did either of you watch the God of War documentary that they put out for the first one? Well, the reboot.
I have not.
I did not.
They at that point in time they were working on a new IP, and that ended up getting stopped or just sort of shut down. And I don't know if they had layoffs or whatever, but they ended up moving that entire team to working on that
Ragnarok.
2018 of God of War, the 2018 one before Ragnarok.
Okay.
So I wonder if, like I said, they were at one point, I want to say that was like a sci-fi. I know this, I watched this documentary and because I wrote about it for my thesis, but they were working on it at that time. So I wonder if this is a return to that. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case.
Yeah, that'll be exciting though to see them do something new and different. Like I feel like after those two God of War games, they need to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need a third God of War game in that same style. I don't. I mean, maybe
not yet. Maybe somewhere down the line. Like
right.
I mean, that's probably Sony's biggest property at this point in time. Yeah, to give them the chance to do something new, build a new character. I feel like that's been such a talking point, especially of the God of Wars, is the ways that the character development has happened.
Yeah.
Of Kratos especially, but these other characters. So to allow them the chance to really like build something from the ground.
Yeah.
That I hope that for them that's the case, that they're able to have that opportunity.
This next line is in here just basically for Christina. I'll go ahead and read it in case she's listening. Behavior Interactive has confirmed that the Castlevania chapter is coming to Dead by Daylight on August 27th. That is probably the thing that has made me most excited about Dead by Daylight in the last couple of years. So maybe I should actually finally check it out if they're going to put Simon Belmont and Dracula in there. Let's see. Balattro's creator. This is kind of a fun story. The creator of Balatro has taken legal steps to ensure his creation can never be used to promote actual gambling even after his death. So basically he wrote out his will and included specific language in his will that even after he dies, Balatro cannot be sold off or turned into some way a actual gambling game.
Yeah, I think he said specifically like there's no under no circumstances are casinos ever allowed to like use the game or partner with it or anything like that.
Which you got to imagine, like casinos are looking at the success of this game and like rubbing their palms together.
I'm sure he's already fended off.
Well, especially considering all of the hoops he had to jump through with, it getting a higher ratings and all that sort of stuff. He's just like, no, I want to make it like abundantly clear that is not what this game is. That is not what this game will ever be.
Yeah.
So respect to that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you think that he could cash in,
oh God,
and make a good paycheck off of this, especially as a small indie developer, right? This isn't your big AAA publisher, small indie developer. He could get a pretty good paycheck.
It'd be real easy to partner up with Vegas.
Yeah. Video games go way back, like basically pre-video games to the pinball days, having ties with casinos and everything, and the manufacturers. So there's a history there. So that's the like kind of more interesting part of it. The like good news that goes along with this is that he has also announced that the game has passed 2 million copies sold, which again, for a small little indie card game is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. There's lots of big AAA games that don't pass 2 million copies sold. Mm-hmm.
Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo Olympics.
Right. There you go. With two of the biggest names in video games, right, attached to it. So, over 2 million copies sold. And he also announced along with that there's going to be a free update with some new gameplay modes he promised as part of that. That's going to be completely free. He's rolling that out into the game. And that makes me ecstatic.
Yeah. I think he said sometime in 2025.
Yeah. It feels an awful lot like, speaking of like Game of the Year contenders, like our Game of the Year from a couple of years ago with Vampire Survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that game came out and they just kept rolling in new content and the sales just kept skyrocketing because there was just so much value to that game. And I think that this game is already worth every dime you pay for it. Adding more content just makes it that easier of a sell.
You had asked, I think it must have been on the last episode. I don't remember what how we got there, but you had asked like, oh, how many hours have you put into, Balatro? Because we were talking about, I don't know, the value of a game and like how many hours you get into it or something like that. And I think I said 40 and I went and looked it up when I got home that day. It was actually closer to 70. So I like way undershot, but
Yeah.
That sounds about right for how everybody's talked about Balatro, though, where, even from the first time that you talked about it as what you've been playing, you were like, yeah, you sit down and suddenly it's 3 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is that type of game, right? Like there are certain games like that just suck away your time in a way that you just lose track of, and it is very good at that. And so makes me even happier that he's sworn off like any sort of real gambling with it, because it is addictive enough. It could be very dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Well, like you said, I can't even imagine how much money you would make if he sold it. I mean, whatever the people that make like the sort of slot machine style games, if he could probably make so much money if he were to have done something like that. So
yeah.
It's
really cool to see him being so open and so sticking to his principles on this of like this, that's not what it's meant for. And you're darn right. It's not ever going to be used for that.
Yeah. And that game is currently on sale. I think I saw it like under $10. So, if you have any interest in that game, like one of my strongest recommendations,
under $10, I might finally get it.
And I'll send you the link if I can find it. Let's see. Warner Bros. Discovery is reportedly considering selling off their game division or their stake in their game division. I feel like it was just last episode that we were talking about, they had acquired the developer of Multiverses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were like, that seems like good sign. Like, you don't go buy this developer if you're not thinking you're going to stick with games. And now they're to the point. This sort of coincides. They announced that they had lost like $8 billion or something.
Can I ask something about the rundown?
Yeah.
Is this like a way that it's like put in their thing, or is that like a video games written like that?
Which part?
Is that
For context, video games is written as one word with capital V, capital G.
Yeah, I think I copied that.
okay? I was about to say, this just feels like and video games in a sort of big video games.
Yeah, I think I copy and pasted part of that. So, yeah, so like, you know, their share prices have kind of plummeted. This is a way to potentially like offset some of that. It's worth noting that particularly in the games division, they've seen a 41% drop in year-over-year revenue, and they blame that primarily on Suicide Squad.
I was not sure what YOY meant. I was just like, 41% drop in YOI revenue. Okay.
Yo-Noid. They're blaming Yo-Noid, the game for the NES.
Yeah, that's what I also saw that and I was like, I mean, I'm sure it's probably bad. A 41% drop in basically any kind of revenue probably isn't a good thing. Would that just be in like what they had to spend to make Suicide Squad based in like what it brought in? Like, is that what they're sort of blaming it for?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, because they've accumulated more losses than like obviously like gains. So like their revenue has dropped by 41%. You know, so how much money they're bringing in, not pure profit. I mean, part of that is, you know, the year before they had Hogwarts Legacy, which was huge.
Yeah.
The
Big
best-selling
blockbuster
game of the year,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And so they have that. And then the next year they have Suicide Squad, which completely bombs.
Damn, Suicide Squad getting thrown under the bus. You're not the best-selling game of the year. Blame it on we made a very popular video game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a very bad sign, though. Like when you start looking at those Batman games, right? Because the last two that they put out, they had the Gotham Knights, which was the Bat family, not Batman.
Yep. Honestly, that's where they finally brought in Jason
And then they did the Suicide Squad game, and this was actually Rocksteady making the Suicide Squad game. And both these games have bombed horribly. And you know, like you can make an argument that they both bombed because these were games that they probably shouldn't have been making, that the people making the games probably knew that as well. But, you know, they wanted a live service game, and that's what Suicide Squad was pitched as. You know, it never really made sense as that. So, like, you know, that game you end up with, like, what's his name? King Shark, like with a gun running around and stuff.
The shark. That's what we talked about last week. It's just the shark
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, shark guy. You know, so like that game was doomed to begin with, it felt like. And
I
then,
mean, to be fair, it lives up to the name.
yeah, it really
It lives
is.
up to the concept of the team.
Yeah, we're going to send you on a mission that is you're doomed from the beginning.
You're good luck making it back.
Yeah, it's truly a suicide mission making that game. Yeah, so I don't know what this, you know, part of the problem too is, well, who wants to buy this? Because none of the IP probably comes with it. Like when you think about like Suicide Squad, they're not going to sell the DC IP with this. So like Warner Brothers is going to keep that. The multiverses, that's all Warner Brothers IP. So if you buy that studio, you're not getting that. The only one is they do own NetherRealm, the makers of Mortal Kombat, so potentially that comes with it. But right now, you know, they're in production of the second Mortal Kombat movie. So they don't really want to sell off that IP while they're making movies and other things of it. So it seems hard to imagine like who's going to come in and buy up all this. Like even if they can sell it. Let's see. jump down here. A couple of things movie related. Let's start with. Do we want to start with the good news or the bad news? Yeah.
We can start with the bad news. Let's end on something more positive.
Okay. Well, the Borderlands film comes out today, this afternoon late. I'm sure they'll be having those early preview screenings and everything. I think this has actually jumped up after I wrote this morning, and I
don't think so. I thought I was looking at like an hour ago.
Oh, I think the last I saw was that it actually is at a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. When I wrote this, it was at 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I think it has jumped up to a 4% now. It may be varying.
I'll say I'm
So
gonna look
is
it
this
up.
like a real reviews, or is this people who are upset, like review bombing it?
No, these are quote unquote professional critics.
Oh, okay.
On Rotten Tomatoes. This isn't the community score.
Okay, it's currently at 3%.
Okay, so it's dropped.
It debuted at 0%, but now it's currently at 3%.
It went up to 4 and dropped back to 3.
So the question is, when are we seeing it?
I don't know. Like the Garfield movie, there was at least a fun joke there. I don't know if there's a fun joke to the Borderlands movie.
I think
Who's
Borderlands
in this movie? There's somebody big in this movie.
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett, okay.
I think Borderlands we go in Mystery Science Theater at.
and Jamie Lee Curtis. And Jack Black's voice.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Claptrap.
he the robot?
Yeah. And Kevin Hart, I guess, is in it. Yeah. So like there's actually like some named cast members, and I feel like at least with Jamie Lee Curtis and Kate Blanchett, like actors who could be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think of like Kate Blanchett. I mean, I know she did like the Marvel movie, right? She was
Thor.
Hela.
Yeah, she was
Okay.
Hela.
I had to think of her as like a prominent, like, you're gonna make movies that are gonna be like nominated for awards type of actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jamie Lee Curtis also just won an Oscar
I was gonna
last year,
say.
2 years ago.
yeah. I mean, that's because they are. They're like
Yeah.
serious actresses, right? Like they have serious chops to them.
Yeah, I think she was nominated for Best Actress for Tar. I think that was Kate Blanchett. But anyways, that's not
Well,
the
and
point.
even Kate Blanchett's in Lord of the Rings.
Also
you know.
true.
She did Carol a few years back, which was fantastic.
Which is not, doesn't mean she's not allowed to do something like
I was gonna
for fun
say,
for herself. But
I definitely always got the vibe that like, half of this cast was doing this because they were like, yeah, this will be fun. And it's like, it's kind of a bummer to see like, okay, the thing that you did just to have fun is bombing. But I also just think it's funny anytime that a movie opens at 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of nerdy. Like she goes to Comic-Con dressed up and cosplay.
Her charity did a lot of work with in tandem with being promoted by the Completionist and everything. So
Right.
like she's been very open about being a video games nerd.
maybe I just have really low standards for movies. I don't understand how a movie can be a 0.
You've never seen Troll 2.
I mean, like, I guess I don't know. Like I said, maybe my standards are just like in the dirt, but I just feel like as long as I don't feel like I wasted multiple hours of my life, I'm usually like, it was fine.
No.
So but when are we seeing it?
Look, I'm free this weekend.
I can't this weekend, but maybe sometime next week.
I'll say we'll go on Tuesday after orientation, get the cheap Tuesday.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, the story that's coming out about this movie is that there was a pretty good screenplay that got Blanchett and Curtis to sign on, and then the director Eli Roth came on board and kind of tossed out a lot of that screenplay.
Mm.
And so, like, what got made is not the film they signed on for.
I see. But they had probably already signed a contract or something like that.
Yeah, and also
Probably
like
more of a hassle to get out of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the details.
Sure.
Of
Well,
that.
and again, if you're looking at this saying
Those are rumors.
Well,
Yeah.
and again, if you're looking at this saying, Kate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Black, this is not their big break.
Yeah, it's also
so
like,
it's like you can look
they're
at it
not
and be
going
like,
to be devastated by making a bad movie.
yeah. It's like they can look at it and say, well,
Maybe.
okay, this isn't what I signed on for, but hopefully they're still able to say, I had a fun time filming with my friends. And
I mean, people forget Jamie Lee Curtis has been around since the original Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So like Jamie Lee Curtis is, 46 years into her career is, I don't think just, she can do what she wants.
Yeah.
At this point.
All 4 of the people that we named can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
None of their careers.
Like they're just having
they're pretty
fun.
established.
And Jack Black's not even on screen, so what does he care?
Yeah, so it's like hopefully they were still able to have fun rather than just being miserable every minute at it being not what they signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had some light hope. It felt like it was going to be a bad Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff, and then when the reviews came out, it's like, oh man, it's not even going to be what I hoped it would be.
So let's go. Mystery Science Theater it.
So that's the bad news. I guess here's the good news. We've been talking about this film and its development. The Until Dawn film has actually begun shooting. So I think we've talked about through the casting process and everything. And I know that Christina said she'd believe it when she actually it was actually filming. Well, it's actually filming now.
And she's not here.
Yeah. So, it's rare that a film actually gets to this stage and then never comes out. It happens, but there's the Wile E. Coyote movie.
I was gonna say, looking at you.
Speaking of Warner Brothers, but this film seems like it's actually going to get made. Whether it'll be good or not is a whole other story, but we'll see. I'm going to go out on a limb here right now and say that it'll have a better Rotten Tomatoes score than the Borderlands film.
Oh, them's bold words.
I mean, I'll own up to it if I'm wrong. I don't think
It's
I will
somehow
be.
going to open to a negative 3%.
This film actively hurts its audience.
Drops down to a -4 after a couple hours.
People are actually leaving this in stretchers. It's that bad.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode. Oh, no. We still have a big question to go to. I'm sorry.
Man, you're just completely on the news today. You're skipping what we're playing. You're skipping the big question.
I'm a little distracted today. I'll talk about that in a minute. So the big question, which game is it for the Olympics since it's going on? Which game or mini game do you think should be an Olympic sport? So this could be a full game, but it could be a mini game within a bigger game. Which one do you think would actually make a cool Olympic sport? Whether playing the game on the screen or maybe people actively playing it in real life, right? So, Alicia, we started with you last time. So, Mario, why don't we start with you? What would your pick be?
So I don't know if it's a specific game, but, as I've talked about, I've always been really interested and enjoy speedrunning and stuff like that. And one of the things I really enjoy, more so than speedrunning itself, is, I guess, sort of adjacent to it, people have made, I guess you would essentially just call it a bingo board for a lot of games. And so you'll see a lot of speedrunners and, so it'll be things that you do within the game. So a really popular one is with Pokemon. It's catch this type of Pokemon or catch this many Pokemon or see this many Pokemon or do all these things. And you're filling out this bingo board. And so I feel like doing that would be really interesting. Maybe not as an Olympic. So one that I've seen a lot or watched a lot was of Super Mario Sunshine. And so it was getting specific shines or all these sorts of things. And to me, I guess I find that really interesting because it's not just speedrunning the game, but it takes the routing of how you're going to go about getting all these things while you're facing off against somebody else. And so they would do it as a lockout style. So if somebody checked it off, that the next person could not also do that.
Yeah.
And so
if I catch a flying type, I get that square first, you can't mark that square anymore.
Exactly. And so you could either do it where, with a lot of the Pokemon ones, it would be Cinco bingo. So you had to get 5 different bingos on the board. With the lockout, it was just whoever had the most squares at the end. And so I feel like something like that those are interesting competitions. I think that take it beyond a level of just racing the game.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people doing that with Infinite Craft when that first came out and was, blowing up. I saw a lot of people doing bingo boards with that for, racing to create whatever words that they put on there. And that was a lot of fun to watch. That would be really cool.
I think one of the things that also does is it really emphasizes a total mastery and understanding of the game, and not just like the speed running route.
Yeah, or the other way to do it as like a speedrunning thing would be doing it with the randomizers, like the Ocarina of Time randomizer, where it's not just going from point A to point B is exactly the same every single time, but it's the like being able to route and like read, oh, I've got these items so I can do this, or this is open, or like it's given me the items for these 3 things, so I should go to this place next. And so it adds a layer beyond just being able to do all of the tricks and stuff of speedrunning, but
sure,
that mental part of the strategy that goes into it.
All
right. Alicia, how about you?
I love that you have a real answer for a cool Olympic game. The minute you said cool, I was like, well, I'm in trouble. I had a really hard time thinking of one at first, and then I remembered the We Play game, and there's one mini game on that in particular that's Charge. And then I had to go and get the description of it from Wikipedia, because I was like, I cannot convey the chaos of this game. But what the game on We Play is you control your Mii character riding a cow as they attempt to navigate a short course within a time limit while knocking down scarecrows and avoiding hurdles. And I was just like, how funny would that be to have an Olympic sport where you're riding a cow and racing?
Does this use like the balance board?
No, you use your Wii remote. It's kind of
okay.
Yeah, you tilt your Wii remote forward, backward, left, right. But it's the one game that my mom still is like, man, we need to figure out if our Wii is working. I want to play the cow racing game again. Like, how fun would it be to just be like, we've got the equestrian sports, we've got the horse riding. Now go ride a cow and race and knock over scarecrows.
Man, I feel like the southern United States would dominate in that.
No, not a bull. You're not bull riding. You're riding a cow.
No. The South, not the Southwest. Yeah, that's neat. It's also neat that your mom, like, that's the game that sticks out in her mind as like, this is the one I want to play.
Yeah, it's like that and Guitar Hero are the two that she still is like, we need to get these working again.
Guitar Hero would also be a very interesting game as an event.
Right.
I'll say my first thought was honestly like, well, okay, we've got breakdancing now, so like, when do we get just a full Just Dance event?
Yeah, sure.
But then I was like, the cow racing game is just funnier.
Have you watched artistic swimming? It's like what synchronized swimming used to be.
Yeah.
So like now they do it.
I heard about it. I haven't watched it.
It's not just 2 people, which is what I always remembered synchronized swimming being, but like there's a whole team. And so it'll be like 7 people get into the water at the same time. And then they do these dance routines in the water.
Yeah.
And like, it's amazing. Like, I mean, it's like just to watch one routine, like you don't have to watch the whole thing, just like watch one routine. And you're just kind of like, well, this is like insane that this is like a sport now and has really radically different than what it was, what I remember as a kid watching synchronized swimming.
The underwater cams for like that, or like with the water polo, are always so interesting. Like, here's what's going on that you're not supposed to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you like see that those people in water polo are like their bodies constantly moving,
actively drowning each other.
Yeah.
And the poor horses, like they really get the worst. So my choice is a mini game from Super Monkey Ball, Monkey Target, which is the one where you rolling your ball down a giant ramp and then you launch off into the air and then you open your ball and you have to glide and land onto a target. You close it back and drop the ball and land on a point target. And so I'm thinking like, we can probably do this for real. Like we can probably actually get this working. Like we have those giant inflatable balls we can put people into. And I'm thinking like,
give them a parachute.
Yeah. Like give them like one of those sort of glider parachutes that pop out. Right. And they can like aim themselves for a target. And I feel like that would be a fantastic, I would watch that. like Monkey Target is fantastic. Like it holds up all these years later as a fantastic mini game. And so if they could turn that into a real sport, I would definitely tune in to watch it. I'm sort of bored of like the traditional sports. I want people to create new sports.
Yeah. When is the Weird Olympics?
Yeah. Like when are we going to get like like
riding a cow in a race.
Yes, riding a cow in a race. Like, but I mean, like even like Americans keep talking about bringing the NFL into the Olympics, and I'm like, no, like bring arena football. Arena football would be more exciting to watch in the Olympics. So, yeah, or basketball. Like just
Basketball would also be pretty interesting.
Or slam ball, the basketball where there were trampolines built into the court. Like
that would be fun.
I'm to go back to Monkey Target a little bit. I'm surprised there's no in the summer games just like shuffleboard. I mean, we have curling obviously, which is similar enough, but I'm surprised there's nothing like that in the Summer Olympics.
Yeah, my understanding is like the Olympics, the host country gets to pick a couple of sports that they like are going to have for that particular one. And then they can get eventually voted into the larger Olympics. So like, break dancing, you mentioned skateboarding is one that is now in the Olympics, but
I want to say for the US when it's in Los Angeles, flag football, baseball will be coming back. And I want to say chess.
Oh, chess is interesting.
Very interesting.
I think it's those three.
Yeah. And that's always cool to me. Like, I mean, I love the Olympics because they shine a light on lesser known sports, right? Like I don't really have interest in watching basketball in the Olympics because I can see that anytime. But like what's really cool is to me, like seeing even beyond the gymnastics, which is always super popular, but like the smaller things, right? Like the water polo. You never see water polo any other time than during the Olympics. I mean,
even like watching like rugby that's big in other places in the world, but in
we
the
don't
US,
get here.
We're like,
one that I had, I don't know if it's been around, but I feel like I'd never seen it, is the 3v3 basketball.
Right.
That's been going on. That's been really, because that just feels like pick up basketball.
Right.
And so that's been really interesting to watch. But anyways, yeah, I agree that really is one of the best parts of the Olympics is just getting to see a highlighting of these sports that you rarely get to see.
Yeah. All right. Now, I believe we are finally done with the rundown, everything we normally talk about. So, okay. I'm actually maybe like on schedule again now. So thank you, Alicia and Mario. Thank you for everyone who has listened and tuned in. So yeah, I said I was slightly distracted. So this is my like slightly distracted message. Last night, a friend of mine from high school passed away, not unexpectedly. Like we knew he had been sick for a while with cancer. But, he's still, in my mind, way too young to be dying. And so if I have been distracted today, that's probably the reason why, because we had sort of drifted apart. We'd been closer in high school. But obviously it's pretty traumatic. Like there's a group, our class group on Facebook. And so it's been, I think, pretty traumatic to a lot of people, and people that I am super close with, had very close relationships with him still. So that's been kind of sad. So I only bring that up just to say, reach out to your friends and your family, your loved ones, because, as I think we're all aware, sometimes you don't get that chance. You don't know that, you don't get that advance notice and everything. And so make sure that you're reaching out to those people, because it's rough out there a lot of times for people. And, he was very surrounded by love and everything as he passed on, but some people, don't necessarily have that when it comes to their time, which is even more tragic. So not to end the show on a bad note, but I think it's a positive note to like reach out to those people, like make sure you find that time in your life right now. So we will be back soon with a new episode. I don't know if we'll record next week because we are doing orientation and everything. So I don't know how that'll fit with everyone's schedules. Like I said, I know Christina particularly will be super busy next week. So we might try to get one in, particularly if we do this Borderlands movie outing. We might try to get one in and everything, particularly because even the next week will probably be even busier with the first week of classes. So we'll see what we can do. But again, thank you for listening. Go play something really fun and exciting this week. Again, reach out to those loved ones, and we will talk to you next time.